stand by and prepare yourselves. The UK is now on recession watch.
Now, the economy is shrinking, and it's now done so for the second month in a row where we've had negative growth. Now, Chancellor Rachel Reeves says it's disappointing, but she's promised to fight on.
But it's not possible to turn around more than a decade of poor economic growth and stagnant living standards in just a few months. But you'll see from the plans we've been announcing, whether that is the energy reforms we've published today, the reforms to build 1.5 million homes that we published yesterday, the pensions reforms, the creation of a national wealth fund, this government are getting on with the job in improving economic growth and driving up living standards.
Well, the Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, he's blamed the government's mismanagement for this contraction.
And what this shows is that this government's constant talking down of the UK economy is coming through in these numbers.
OK, well, joining us now in the studio is GB News political editor Christopher Hope. Now, Christopher, you've been speaking to Number 10's spokesperson. Not good news to come out today. What is their response?
Well, they're saying, Emily and Charlie, great to see you in studio, of course, on Friday.
Yes, thank you.
They're saying growth is the number one mission for this government. They're saying they're driving that economic growth. The Deputy PM's official spokesman told us about half an hour ago. They want to see growth in living standards too, and that's where they're coming from. So they say that in December, GfK consumer confidence grew by 3 points. That shows that consumer confidence is coming back in December. Don't forget the timing of these figures to the end of October are right in that period when we're all just terrified of this upcoming budget. There were reports daily on plans to go after the country, anybody, on all sorts of tax increases, or most people on tax increases. So they're trying to set that against what's actually happened. But a 0.1% contraction is a problem.
Yeah, and Chopper, this morning we also have this discussion about energy security, Ed Miliband's strategy for renewable energy. A lot of the discussion around that has been about how will we cut bills. This £300 reduction, which the Energy Secretary, he's promised it in the election, but he won't say when it will come in. Obviously, it's modelling they're basing that on. Did you get any answers on that point this morning?
They're standing by a fall in energy bills. They won't say the £300 figure clearly. They say we are planning to do that. The recent advice, I say, from a regulator called NESO says the cost of energy will be lower by 2030 from the falling cost of renewables, other measures too. And then, sorry, forgive me, they do say this. The Deputy PM spokesman said, we stand by the independent modelling that the saving could be £300 by 2030, not will be. But to be fair, I did check the language. Ed Miliband always said could be during the election. So they have stuck by that pledge to it could be down by 300 quid. Why are you smiling?
I'm smiling because it's impossible to say, isn't it? It's impossible to model these things and project. It depends on so many different factors. No matter how many wind turbines you build in the countryside, you can't determine exactly where those bills are going to go. But
they are saying this NESO group, the independent forecast, is saying that it can cut it. We haven't yet had Ed Miliband on the channel to ask him these questions.
Yes, why not?
So if he'll come on, we'll ask him, but we haven't yet seen him on the channel today, despite the importance of what he's doing today.
But he said that all of our viewers and listeners would absolutely love GB Energy, his big project, because we are GB News. But he doesn't want to speak to us.
No.
Oh, that's a shame, isn't it?
But there also will be some money for communities who have to put up with pylons near them and windmills and the like. There'll be some money money to those communities, whether that's off a council tax bill or off bills somehow. So there'll be reward for those who are willing to help with this green energy revolution.
I guess.
Is that Ed Miliband?
That's not Ed Miliband.
I guess because they accept some of our viewers. Yeah, good for him. Our viewers have written in today quite a lot saying that they find these wind farms to be a big blight on their area. They make an enormous amount of noise. You also had one comment you read out, Emily. So is that what the government is trying to reduce, that concern with this offset of bills?
I've once asked Ed Miliband for my podcast in a previous life, would he live next door to a windmill?
Oh, yes.
He said yes, no problem. But you do hear anecdotal chatter, probably more of that will going forward, about this whirring noise, which can be irritating.
And now financial support to offset that whirring.
Maybe that's a deal people often people can get away with not minding on about whirring. Perhaps money can pay them off.
So, I mean, it's a good question to our viewers. If you got a little bit off your bills every month, would you accept Lots of wind turbines near you? Is that, the balance that you would strike? But also, I'm interested, another Ed Miliband story.
Yes.
This kind of open row between him and Wes Streeting, his cabinet colleague, over what they should have done back in 2013 with regards to Syria.
Yes, remarks made by Wes Streeting on the BBC TV's Question Time programme. Wes Streeting said that the bloodshed could have been stopped had we acted more clearly back in 2013. Of course, it didn't happen because Labour voted against bombing Syria then after Assad used chemical weapons against his own people. Number 10, fair enough, is not wanting to get into that row. I mean, to be fair to them, Sir Keir Starmer was not even an MP then. He became an MP in 2015. And they're just saying, it speaks for itself. We got these remarks. But for me, as a journalist, that's Wes Streeting.
Sticking the knife in.
Well, I wouldn't say that. There's no violence involved on GB News, but certainly having a go at
just a little movement towards a little kick.
I think Wes Streeting is one of the most interesting Labour ministers. I think he talks the language of a lot of our viewers a lot of the time. I think he understands.
People like him better than most, don't they? When you look at politicians,
he's very compelling as a politician, and anything he's up to, you're going to watch closely.
Maybe do you think he's a bit embarrassed of Ed Miliband? Maybe sometimes.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know I haven't talked to him again. He would deny he was trying to have a go at Ed Miliband. He merely wanted the country to act more clearly back in 2013. And to be fair to Ed Miliband, the Tory government could have come back with a vote at some point.
And Chris, you've got another episode of your podcast coming out soon, the German ambassador to Britain, Miguel Berger,
yes,
as a guest there. What can you reveal from that discussion?
Thank you. So Miguel Berger is the German ambassador to the UK. The first 6 months of next year, I'm already thinking about the first 6 months of next year. It's a lot about Brexit renegotiation or resetting, not renegotiating, resetting. The red lines are safe. We're not going back into the single market or the customs union, but there'll be elements of trying to get closer to the EU. For example, on freedom of movement for the under-30s. And in this interview with Miguel Berger, he did speak to us about that. And here's what he had to say. Government here says no plans for movement under 30s, but there's been talks already privately with the German government?
No, not yet. And this would be negotiated by the European Union.
Oh, I see. You can't do individual deals.
So we would not do it individually, but you have seen that the Prime Minister is going to meet Ms. von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, somewhere in spring next year. And then we will start talking about the whole reset, because so far it could not be done. Why? Because the European Commission was not up and working. It was just confirmed some days ago. And so in spring, we are going to start these talks.
And will this be on the agenda, freedom of movement for under 30s?
There will be many things on the agenda. The Security Pact, which is proposed by the British government. So cooperation on a wide area of topics, respecting, obviously, the red lines.
But including the idea of under 30s?
It will be included, yeah.
Yes.
And also the question of Erasmus program,
yes,
where the United Kingdom in the last minute opted out of it. So all of these things will be again on the table.
There we have it there from Miguel Berger. I mean, it's a limited number of young people who could be allowed through the scheme, but anything going towards freedom of movement is a worry for some people. And just for quickly, the government says no plans for it, but they are open to bilateral deals on visa-free school trips.
Interesting stuff, Chopper. And just very quickly, there's also some discussion today about small boats, 609 crossing yesterday. How was that raised in the lobby?
Yes, that's the biggest record for a December day, 600 crossing yesterday across the north coast of France. What they say is that they point out the small boat crossings were up 18% in the first 6 months of this year. The government is smashing the gangs, ramping up returns. 9,400 people returned since July, 23,000 asylum interviews. And of course, we know the new deal with Germany as well on combating the vile trade in human trafficking.
Yes, I'd like to keep an eye on this returns figure. So 9,000 plus.
400 since July.
Yeah, OK. Is that a good figure? I don't know.
I will get back to you, Emily, in the next hour.
We'll find out.
That's
I don't know either.
I find out what you want to know.
Thank you very much, Chopper. Please find out if that's a good number of returns. Thank you very much indeed. Shall we speak to the Director of Popular Conservatives UK, Mark Littlewood? Mark, we want to talk to you about this economic data that's come out for October. So September, the economy shrunk. October, the economy shrunk. Do you suspect that we're heading towards recession?
Very probably, Emily. I mean, colour me completely unsurprised about these numbers. We can sometimes get a bit too panicky about whether the number is just below 0%, which it appears to be, or just above 0%. But these are very poor numbers, given that the government has said that they would be laser focused on growth and economic growth was their number one priority. Well, 5 months in, they're failing on that. And you know what the numbers cloak as well? The minus 0.1% is the UK as a whole, the total size of the UK economy. But of course, the UK population is growing rapidly. So we have a smaller economy divided by more people. So on a per capita, on a per person basis, we're going backwards by more than 0.1% per month if these numbers are right. Now, look, I'm trying to be fair here. The Labour government can say that, it's going to take them a while to turn things round. But I have found virtually nothing in their programme that I think is likely to supercharge growth, with the possible exception of their house building programme, if they can get that off the ground. If you want growth, you've got to get taxes down, not up. You've got to get state spending down, not up. And you've got to deregulate rather than passing more and more regulations, which they're about to do, to completely mess up the employment market.
And Mark, what can we make of the different sectors that have been affected by these contractions? What do you think that says about the sort of economic downturn we're experiencing at the moment?
Well, I think actually across the board, you can try and dig into, manufacturing being hit particularly badly, for example. But I fear that this reflects a loss of confidence in business and the view that the UK is not a particularly benign climate to invest in at the moment. And of course, these numbers predate the budget, which has put further costs on businesses. So I'm not an economic forecaster, and it's very difficult to predict to a decimal point what might happen next month or the month after. But I'd say the trajectory is very concerning. And if we get further policies like Rachel Reeves' budget, the position will deteriorate further still. I'm not expecting her to U-turn on that budget, but a government that wants growth, claims that its number one priority is growth, claims to be laser focused on growth, needs to have a plan, as I say, to get tax and regulation down, whereas virtually everything we've heard from this Labour government so far is about putting taxes and regulations further up. That if they continue on that path, going backwards by 0.1% a month will look like a picnic. We'll go back a lot faster than that.
Yeah, Mark Littlewood, thank you very much indeed. A sobering analysis, but let's hope things can turn around. We shall see. The policies don't really match growth at the moment, in my humble opinion. But how depressing. We are, as a country, getting poorer. So our population is growing, yet the economy is shrinking. That means per capita, every individual has less, essentially.
Yes, and that line that we just heard from Mark, loss of confidence, not drilling down too much into individual sectors. It's a general malaise applied to all. So there we go, that's cheery.